Next, let's work on making this navbar actually responsive. So we started by building just the mobile layout. You can see here, when we click the button, the links show up, and when we click the button, the links close. But even when we get up to like Tailwind's small screen size, which is 640 pixels wide, I think we probably have room to fit all of these links right here in the navbar instead of having to use the hamburger menu. So let's work on making this actually work the way we want. So the first thing I'm going to do is hide this hamburger menu once we get to the small screen size. So we can do that by adding a class to the div that's holding it and giving that a class of SM hidden, which says give this display none on small screens and above. And now you can see the hamburger menu is gone. We can bring these links into view by adding a SM block class, which says on small screens, give this a display of block no matter what. And again, because Tailwind's responsive classes apply from whatever breakpoint they start at all the way up to the highest screen size, what this is actually doing is overriding the hidden class here and saying no matter what this is set to, whether it's block or hidden, once you hit the small screen size, it should always be blocked so the links are always visible. Next, if we want these links to actually appear beside this workcation logo, I think we're probably going to want to use a flexbox, right? Just like we did with the button. So if we want all of this stuff to appear on the right, what we need to do is find the parent container, sort of the nearest ancestor of both the div containing the logo, which is this div, and the div with the links, and give that a class of flex on small screens and above. So if we say SM flex, that should put things next to each other. And if we say SM justify between, that should slam it all the way over to the right. Next, let's make all these links actually appear in line next to each other as well. So there's a couple ways that we could do that. We could take all of these links and instead of making them display block like we are here, we could just switch them to inline block at this screen size by adding an SM inline block class to all of these. So that would be something like, SM inline block. And that would basically do the trick. But I think an approach that I actually like a little bit better in this case is to just make the container a flex container, just like we did for the header, because that'll automatically make everything line up horizontally. And then we can sort of control the positioning of these links however we want. So instead of making this SM block, why don't we make this SM flex? Since flex acts exactly like a block level container, except it makes its children flex children. Okay, so now you can see we've got a couple funky alignment issues here. So because both of these links have MT1, they're being pushed down a little bit lower than this link. So why don't we go ahead and remove that from these? So I'm just going to add at the very end here SM MT0, sort of overriding that. Now instead of having top margins, since these items are next to each other, I think we can probably add some left margins so there's a little bit of space between each one instead. So why don't we do something like SM ML2, something like that, see what that looks like. So now we have a little bit of space between each one, which I think actually looks pretty good. The next thing I want to look at is sort of the surrounding space around everything. So right now you can see like the margin on this side, or the padding on this side rather, is quite a bit less than we have on this side. So why don't we take a look at what's causing that? So right now we have all this padding on the container wrapping all of the links that's sort of there to make things look the way they're supposed to in this sort of stacked view. But since things are next to each other now, we probably don't want it to have the exact same padding. So I'm going to start by just setting this to P0 and see what that looks like, just like removing all padding entirely. Okay, now you can see obviously it goes way off to the right and way up to the top. If we wanted to simulate the padding that we're using around this logo, we could duplicate these classes. We could take this like px4, py3 and add it to this container as well. But I think a better way to handle that would be to actually move this padding to the parent container, this container, when we're in this sort of desktop view. To me, it makes a little bit more sense when possible to just use like one declaration to handle the padding for the entire container. Instead of just duplicating this on both the left half and the right half, if we can just apply all of this to the parent, that's kind of simpler because we can change it in one place if we need to. So I think we do need to keep this here for when we're on the mobile screens, but we can add it up here on desktop screens as well and remove it from this div on the desktop screens. So why don't we do something like SMPX4, SMPY3, and then down here we'll do SMP0 to remove it. And now you can see we do have that sort of even padding around the entire thing. Now the last thing to sort of look at is the alignment of this text. So right now we aren't doing anything to sort of vertically align this in any special way. So maybe we could add something like SM items center to center it. And you can actually see that this doesn't change anything. So what that says to me is that these items happen to be the exact same height as this logo, so you don't actually notice it. But if this was to be like, say, H12, now you can see these stay centered, whereas if we were to get rid of this class, they're going to float to the top. So I do think we want to say that they should be centered just in case the heights ever were different or we did want to change the height. But that doesn't actually have any visual impact on what we're doing right now. So let's take a look at how this works. So this seems to work okay at this screen size, right? We got the logo over here, we got the links over on the right, everything's okay. As we go up to bigger sizes, you can see the layout just stays the same. We don't need to make any tweaks at these screen sizes because everything fits on the small screen size, so those changes will just cascade all the way up to the largest one. But once we drop down below 640 pixels, like 375 here in this sort of like mobile view, you can see everything switches back to how it was before. And if we did everything right, we shouldn't have broken this layout at all. And it looks like we didn't. It looks like everything still looks good. So that's kind of how we can take this mobile nav bar and make it fully responsive so it works on both mobile screens and desktop screens.